Have you ever thought about what it would take to power a region with over 680 million people on one single massive power grid? Well, it's one of the most ambitious projects on the entire planet, and it's taking shape right now in Southeast Asia. I mean, just picture this for a second. From the mountains of Laos all the way to the skyscrapers of Singapore, clean, renewable energy just flowing freely across borders. It sounds like something out of science fiction, but this is the real vision behind what's called the ASEAN Power Grid, or APG. So, what is it officially? Well, the APG is this massive, long-term project to build one unified power system for all 10 ASEAN nations. And the goals? They're simple to say, but huge to pull off. Make energy more secure, make sure everyone can get it, and make it a whole lot greener. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to look at the history of this electric dream, figure out why there's such a big push for it now, see how they're actually building it piece by piece, unpack the major hurdles standing in the way, and finally, look at what this connected future could really mean for everyone. Okay, first up, an electric dream. And the first thing you need to know is that this grand vision, well, it isn't exactly new. Nope, it's actually been kicking around for a pretty long time. The whole idea first came up way back in the late 1990s. But then, for almost 20 years, progress was, well, it was super slow. We're talking just a few basic power lines between countries that were already neighbors. So what changed? Why is this old idea suddenly getting so much attention in the 2020s? Right, so why the sudden urgency? The answer really comes down to two massive forces that are reshaping, well, pretty much everything: climate change and economics. You can really boil this new push down to four key things. First, you've got climate change. All these countries have carbon reduction goals, and they're realizing they can't hit them alone. Second, power demand in Southeast Asia is just exploding. Third, people want affordable electricity, and governments are feeling that pressure. And finally, there's this basic mismatch. Some countries have way more energy than they need, while others are starving for it. And look, this isn't just about feeling good about the environment. It's about cold, hard cash. Experts figure that by teaming up, the region could slash the cost of going green by a mind-blowing $800 billion. I mean, to put that into perspective, that is more than the entire economy of some of these countries. That's a huge incentive. And these aren't just abstract numbers. The benefits float right down to the 680 million people who live there. We're talking about a more reliable power supply, for sure, but also real money in their pockets. A fully connected grid could drop electricity prices for consumers by almost 4%. Now this right here, this is the perfect example of the economic logic at play. It's a perfect match. You've got Laos, which has tons of hydropower but a small population, so a huge surplus of clean energy. Then you have Singapore, a global powerhouse with massive energy needs but almost no land for big solar or wind farms. A connected grid solves both of their problems with one elegant solution. So, how in the world do you actually build something this big? You can't do it all at once. The strategy is to connect the dots, building it out piece by piece in a really deliberate, step-by-step way. This whole journey is broken down into 3 phases. Phase 1 is the simple stuff: direct connections between two countries right next to each other. Phase 2 is where it gets interesting. You get small groups of countries to start trading power in pilot projects. And the endgame, phase 3, is the unified grid, a single market where electricity flows freely across all 10 nations. And phase 2 isn't just a plan on paper, it's already happening. The LTMS project is a fantastic example. Laos makes the hydropower, it travels through Thailand and Malaysia, and it powers homes in Singapore. It's a small start, but it proves the concept works. And looking ahead, there are even more ambitious plans, like connecting the region's island nations with these massive underwater sea cables. So this all sounds great, right? The logic is sound, the benefits are clear, we're even seeing some progress. Which brings us to the big, obvious question. What's the holdup? Yeah, if the ASEAN Power Grid is such a no-brainer, why, after more than 20 years, is it still mostly just a dream? Well, the truth is, building this thing is just incredibly difficult. The problems fall into 4 main buckets. And you might be surprised to see that while money and politics are big issues, the single biggest obstacle, a whopping 40% of the challenge, is purely technical. And the biggest technical headache is something called synchronization. Think of it this way. Every power grid has a heartbeat, a frequency. As you can see here, the entire European grid beats in almost perfect time. But if you try to connect a really stable grid to a less stable one, it's a disaster waiting to happen. It can cause a massive power surge and trigger a catastrophic region-wide blackout. Getting 10 national grids to all dance to the exact same rhythm is a monumental engineering challenge. And then, of course, there's the money. The scale is just mind-boggling. An initial $10 billion gets things started, but that's a drop in the bucket. The transmission lines alone are estimated to cost $100 billion, and the total price tag for the full vision, over $760 billion. The funding gap is just immense. But even if you solve the tech and the money problems, you run into another wall: mismatched markets. In a place like Singapore, you have a free market where prices go up and down. But in many other countries, one single state-owned company controls everything and prices are locked in. So how do you trade power between two totally different systems? It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. And that leads us to the final and maybe the toughest hurdle of all: political will. For any country, energy is a matter of national security. Convincing 10 different nations to depend on each other for something as critical as electricity is a really tough sell. And within ASEAN, every decision requires everyone to agree, which means progress moves at the speed of the slowest country. But even with all those challenges, this dream is still very much alive. So for this last part, let's focus on the why. Why is it so important to get past these hurdles? Let's look at the incredible potential of this connected future. If, and it is a big if, they can pull this off, the payoff is just enormous. It would slash the region's dependence on fossil fuels. It would lower energy bills for hundreds of millions of people. It would make the entire region's economy more competitive and create an energy system that is way more secure and reliable. It could even be the first building block of an even bigger Asian supergrid someday. But maybe, just maybe, the true potential here goes beyond electricity. This isn't just about kilowatts, it's about cooperation. As one person put it, a successful grid could literally light the way for a whole new model of how countries can work together, especially in the tense world we live in today. And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. This project is about so much more than just infrastructure. It's a massive test. Can a diverse group of nations really come together to solve a shared problem for the common good? Because if they can, it might just offer a blueprint for cooperation that the rest of the world could learn from.